Let me ask you a question. Are you as annoyed and fed up and sick of all of this meaningless violence going on around us as most other people are? As sick and fed up with it as I am? I hope so. I hope so because we have seen yet again on many instances in the very near past that all of this meaningless and senseless violence against people, and it doesn't matter black, white, Hispanic, African, Muslim, none of that matters. Asian, it doesn't matter. And for some reason, as a group of people, as a society, we cannot come together on the idea that we want to feel safe. We need to have safe places to be. For example, the young woman that was for no reason stabbed in the neck on a train going home from work, apparently doing nothing to nobody except for sitting on a train and thumbing through TikTok or something like that. And the man, if you haven't seen it yet, if you haven't heard about it, well, first of all, I would think that you might be living under a rock, because well, I shouldn't say you might be. I believe that the mainstream media is going to fail us yet again on this particular story. There's probably all kinds of things that have to do with this that they don't want you to hear, one side or the other. And that's the other thing. This isn't political. These things should not be political. Why would it be okay in anybody's mind that these types of things should not be met with extreme accountability? The man that did this should face extreme accountability. And what that looks like, that's really not up to me. If it were up to me, I would say people like this guy, whatever the hell his name is, DeCarlos Brown, I think it was. DeCarlos Brown should be executed, and maybe even in a public square for everybody to see. But yet we're going to get all of these people that are going to take his side and say, well, he should have due process and see his day in court and blah, 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 because that's what our Constitution says. Well, those people are right. That is what our Constitution says. But somebody at some point needs to be the sacrificial lamb for all of this bullshit. Why does he deserve his day in court when, in my opinion, and this whole case, if you're not aware and you haven't heard or you don't know anything about the bail industry, this whole case is going to take away jobs from bail bondsmen and recovery agents and all of these people. And some will say rightfully so, because bail bondsmen are scumbags. And it's probably not a false statement. There probably are some, probably a lot of them. Hell, I know a few of them. I worked in the bail industry for many. But the truth is about DeCarlos Brown is that he should have been told that he sacrificed his constitutional right for bail after he's been arrested for 14 or 13 times or something like that. And most of them apparently violent crimes. But yet judges just keep letting him out on bail. And so now this whole thing where people do have a constitutional right to bail is all going to go away unless you have cash to pay, cash bail. And to be truthful, in some instances, it's not a bad thing. But also the reason, for example, that the Fugitive Recovery Agency that I worked for, one of the main reasons that we shut down the business was because these criminals were getting ridiculously low bail amounts. Ridiculously low. We're talking felon in possession of a firearm, drug trafficking, meth sales, meth distribution, all of these things for $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 bails, maybe to $20,000 bails. Well, if you don't know how it works, if the judge sets your bail at $20,000, in many states like Minnesota here, You pay a bail bondsman 10%. You pay him $2,000. They do all the paperwork with you, submit it to the jail, to the courts, and they let you go with a court date. And when you don't show up to court, if you don't show up to court, then they send the recovery people after you to arrest you and bring you back to jail until you can see a judge, because you've already proven that you cannot be held responsible for your own appointment, your own court date. But when a person has been put in jail 14 times and has never been told, sir, you have relinquished your right to bail, judge can make that decision. You're a danger to the public. You're a flight risk. I don't believe you're going to come back. I don't believe that you're not going to recommit crime. They can say that and hold you without bail. Why would he be let back out of jail? And furthermore, did Irina get her due process? Did Irina have the ability to move about freely in a safe place? And I know that we talk about how the world is just not so safe any longer, and you got to have your head on a swivel, and you got to look out, and you can't trust people, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. Well, all of that is crap. All of that is bullshit. This man should hang from a post in a public square, like they used to do way back in the however long ago, like they do in other countries in this world. If you steal a piece of fruit, you lose a hand. If you're a man and you rape a woman or a kid or something like that, commit some sexual crime, they cut your dick off. Because if you don't have a hand, you can't steal again. If we cut your dick off and just leave you a little piece of gristle to piss out of, then you can't rape another kid, or you can't rape another woman. You can't commit any more sexual crimes. There comes a point where these people are taking advantage of our system, taking advantage of the justice system. And it doesn't help that the justice system has been completely bombarded with wieners, dummies, idiots. And in most cases, as reported, left liberals, Democratic judges. And that's not just a statement of a Republican that hates Democrats, because that's not me. But if you do the research, you'll see that the judges, at least the last 2 or 3 of them that dealt with this guy, were strong supporters of people like Kamala Harris and the left. And so you call a spade, right? If the judge was a Trump supporter and donated to his campaign and all that other stuff, that wouldn't change. It wouldn't change the opinion of many people who have some common sense in this country. It doesn't matter who the judge votes for or who the judge supports, but we can certainly do a little bit of research. Court records, for the most part, at least names and judges and case numbers and file numbers, they're public for the most part. So we could see and then look up the name of the judge and see where their allegiances lie, where their views lie, all of those things. So the argument that this is left versus right and this is political and this is black folks against white folks and Latino folks against white folks and black folks and all of this bullshit it's all stupid. There is no reason for these types of things to be happening, and there's no reason that people like DeMarcus or DeCarlos Brown should not be executed for the crime and maybe even possible crimes in the past that he's committed. It was just yesterday or the day before, I saw President Trump I think I was on X or Facebook or YouTube or something, talking about this particular case. And he showed the picture of this girl and he showed the picture of the guy about to stab her in the neck. And at the end of this short video, it ends with him saying, we must face this head on with the same brutality, the same viciousness as these criminals show innocent people. And he ended with, because that's all that they understand. And there's a lot of truth to that. People like DeCarlos, I'm sorry, not DeMarcus. DeMarcus Brown, if you're out there, I apologize. But people like DeCarlos Brown, they don't give a shit about what you want, what your rights are, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's indifferent. He doesn't give a shit. He's going to do whatever he wants. And if you watch the video and you find one that plays long enough, you can hear him say, as he moves to the door underneath the camera, you can hear him say, "I got that white girl." And what's ironic about this also is that some picture of Irina surfaced on social media of her in her bedroom taking a picture or selfie or something. And the poster on the wall behind her is in support of Black Lives Matter. So if nothing else, this woman supported the organization that claims to be advocating and fighting for African American people in our country. She supported the cause that was looking out for this guy, and he stabbed her in the neck for no reason. Now, probably what'll happen is, because it was caught on video, he can't argue it. Probably what'll happen is hopefully he'll sit in prison for the rest of his life at the very least. I don't know, does South Carolina have the death penalty? Probably not. What about this story? Rochester man gets 180 days in jail for raping 2 girls under the age of 9. This is Tim Walz's Minnesota. What does it say here? 20-year-old Mohamed Bakari Shei, or however you pronounce his name, who gives a shit, will serve no prison time after he was convicted of raping 2 girls, and they were the ages of 4 and 9 in Rochester, Minnesota. He will not be required to register as a sex offender either. This dude was convicted of raping small, little, innocent children. And here in Minnesota, the man isn't even going to see a day in prison. Nor does he have to register as a sex offender, so wherever he goes from here, everyone else is in danger. If you live by this guy at some point in time in your life, get him out of there or you leave, because your children are not safe. And for what? Why is this? Why are things like this even a conversation? Why is there any deliberation or debate about how these types of things and these types of people should be handled? And furthermore, how many children and innocent women and men, how many innocent people are going to have to suffer at the hands of these fucking scumbags? And if you can't see that this is wrong, then I would venture to say that there is a bigger problem. At least in your hemisphere, in your circle, in your direct area, there is a bigger problem going on than anything we're talking about. Mohamed Bakari Shei, however you pronounce his name, that man should never see the light of day either. They should cut his genitals off or chemically castrate him. And how do you rectify it? How do you justify? How do you justify things like this to these little girls who are going to grow up and their lives at 4 and 9 years old are changed forever, scarred forever? Visions of this piece of shit doing whatever he did to them will never leave them. And they're 4 and 9. If you have kids, think about when your kids were 4 and or 9 and somebody just even talked to them wrong in a grocery store, or yelled at them, or shoved them out of the way. Think about how people lose their ever-loving minds when their kids get messed with. And these 2 little girls, their parents got to just live with it. These 2 little girls just got to live with it. And this piece of shit gets to walk free. This is what a Tim Walz, Minnesota looks like. All of these things. And these 2 are probably just the most recent ones, or the most recent ones that I found today. But these things are probably happening all over the place. Why is it okay for innocent people in our country who are innocent little children, who are young, defenseless, small women going home from work? Why should anybody have to be afraid that they're going to be assaulted or attacked or kidnapped or stolen or anything like that? Why? And when somebody in a leadership position finally says, we're not dealing with this anymore, we're going to take the fight to the bad guys. Why is that a horrible thing? Why does that automatically for people equate to he's a power hungry piece of shit, and all he is in it for himself? Well, who's sticking up for Irina, and who's sticking up for these 2 little girls? Certainly not the people that think that way. But when it comes to your back door, and it's your kids or it's your sister or it's your mom or your girlfriend or your wife or your husband or whoever, then you'll be pissed about it. Then you'll ask questions. Then you'll want answers. But until it touches down in your backyard, he deserves due process. He deserves to have his day in court. He's had it. DeCarlos Brown has had his day in court. He shouldn't have been out of jail to have the opportunity for another day in court after committing another crime. He probably should just not be breathing any longer. Don't know that the world is going to miss DeCarlos Brown if he were to be gone. And I'm sure that if he was gone, his family and his friends and his parents will show all these pictures of him in high school and playing football or soccer or basketball or baseball or whatever, and say that he was just getting his life together. You know, he struggled. He had some mental health concerns, but he was just getting his life together. After committing 14 crimes, being let out on bail yet again, and then murdering a woman on a bus, and then standing underneath the camera and gloating that he got that white girl. And all the while this is happening, mind you, there's five other people sitting within arm's reach, if not just out of arm's reach, from him and then this woman who was 2 minutes later dead on the floor of that train before it hit the next stop, I would imagine. And they all just sat there and watched. Apparently there was one guy that went over to try to help her, but I'm sure she was dead already. But you know what I bet they did? For sure, their first instinct was probably to pull out their phone and start recording. As this little woman is scared and trembling and trying to figure out what just happened to her right before she dies on the floor of some dirty ass train with some scumbag standing over her talking about how he got her. She died alone with no help. And now I'm willing to bet we're going to see all kinds of people come to this guy's defense. If anybody has the balls to come to his defense, it'll certainly be top news. It'll make the news then, and then it'll hit the news cycle multiple times a day. Mohamed Bakari, who knows if we'll ever hear anything else about it, but it happened. It's right here. I'll put it on the screen. I don't understand it. I don't understand why this type of thing is okay for people, why they work so hard to find an argument against keeping monsters where they need to be, and why we have to shove race and color and creed and cultural background and ethnicity and all that stuff into it. If you are a person that arbitrarily hurts another person on this soil, there are consequences for that. Whether you're a black guy killing a white woman or a white woman killing a black guy or a Mexican guy killing an Asian dude, it doesn't matter. And that goes for everybody across the board. When in this country did we lose the idea of the golden rule and treating others as you'd like to be treated? Maybe it's been a long time since that idea has left us. But I also wonder if people are going to fight this narrative that DeCarlos Brown should go away forever just because Donald Trump said, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to meet it head on with the same viciousness and the same speed, violence of action that they show their victims. People like DeCarlos Brown don't understand, hey man, can't be doing this. We got to figure out another way. They don't understand that. All they understand is the same attitude, the same actions, the same presence. All they understand is the same thing that they put out. They don't understand kindness and understanding. They don't understand that stuff. So why would he be shown that after 14 previous crimes? Why would he do it? Why would anybody show him that understanding? It's the same idea, I think, of talking to children. It's the same idea of talking to children in a way they'll understand. You got to talk to scumbags in a way that they'll understand. When Stu and I were traipsing around this country chasing felony fugitives from justice. And we found them, and they barricaded themselves in rooms, or they ran, or they played games on a phone, either on text or talking on the phone, or all kinds of shit, or in your face. These aren't my pants. I don't know where these drugs came from. These aren't my pants. All those stupid games and stupid conversations and just dumb shit that happens, that's what they understand. And when they're stabbing innocent people in the neck, and they're raping kids, and they're stealing shit and destroying property and setting things on fire and committing violent acts all over the place, they don't understand due process, because they're going to take advantage of due process. They're not bought into the ideas of this country like everyone else who abides by some sort of guideline, some sort of law, some sort of common courtesy to the next person across from them or beside them or whatever. To Carlos Brown and Mohamed Bakari, they don't understand anything but what they deal. And they deal violence. They deal in just being scumbags. And in order to get your point across to them, you're probably going to have to be a scumbag too. You're probably going to have to show them the same courtesy they show their victims. So when Mohamed Bakari ever goes to jail again, if he stays around, hopefully there's a whole pile of real big, strong, burly men that hold him down and auger him the hell out for hours and hours and use him as a pirate's cove. Then when he whines and cries, beat the shit out of him. Give him the same treatment he gave that 4 and 9-year-old girl, because he doesn't understand anything but what he deals. And I have a really hard time grasping why and how people just choose not to see it. It's got to be a choice, right? It has to be. I don't know that it's possible that we're this ignorant, that anybody is this ignorant that they can't understand what the hell's going on. Maybe I'm the ignorant one. Anyway, that's I was actually hoping to have a pleasant conversation today, and I got overtaken by these stories. Jason sent me the one about the dirtbag in Rochester, and then of course the Irina Zarutska story is all over X and Facebook and things like that. It's all over social media. I haven't taken the time to turn on the television the last few hours or day, so I don't know if it's on the mainstream media, but I bet it's not. I bet it's not, because it doesn't fit a narrative that the media wants you to see. Maybe it's on Fox News, maybe. Who knows? None of them are great. None of them are honest. They all want ratings and money and all that other bullshit, but that's probably a whole nother conversation. Head on a swivel, people. Be aware of who you're around and where you're at. Look for ways to run away and escape and get out of there if you have to. Especially if you're a small 5'6", 140-pound woman. That's not going to stop a 6'2", 255-pound dude. Know where you can go. I hate to say have a plan, because when you get stabbed in the neck, you don't remember what your plan is. But always be aware of who and what is around you. Ways to get out if you need to, things you can use to fight back if you have to. Go in pairs, go in groups, whatever it is, because clearly these monsters are on our streets and they're in our communities where you least expect it. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are we expected to just post up in our houses and never leave? Maybe that's part of what they want. Whoever they is, whoever's pushing this shit and letting these people out of jail. How does this happen? How does a 20-year-old man molest and rape a 4 and 9-year-old girl and not have to answer for it? I didn't read the whole story. I read the headline and a few lines of the story. But why do we need to read the story? It's there. 20-year-old man will serve no prison time. He's just been convicted of raping 2 girls between the ages of 4 and 9. In Rochester, Minnesota, he will not even be required to register as a sex offender. I'll tell you what, as a person who's a Minnesotan, this is embarrassing. Number one, it's embarrassing. Number two, it's absolutely disgusting and asinine that things like this are happening and nobody's being held accountable. It's really sad. And there's many places in our communities and around our country that are doing great things to help people. There's great things happening around, and all of it gets overshadowed by this type of thing. And of course, we could purposely be people that choose to put our heads in the sand and just ignore it and have the mentality that it doesn't affect me. I can't do anything to change this, so why should I let it bother me? And if that's your train of thought, then so be it. It is what it is. But I, for one, just don't understand it. I think if you're a person who has kids who are out in the world trying to make something of themselves, my wife and I have young adult children. Youngest 2 or 20 years old. They're out in the world trying to make a life for themselves. They're trying to figure out what it is they want to do with their lives and how they want to set up their families if they want to have them, how they want to set up their careers and what they want to be doing with this thing called life. And nobody wants to be worried about their kids going to work. Irina was coming home from the pizza shop she worked at, just going home. So if you're a person with little kids, keep on the lookout for people like Mohamed Bakari because he wants to rape them. If you're a parent of young adults or older teenagers, teach them to have some situational awareness. Teach them not to bury their faces in their phones whenever they have free time. Before you bury your face in your phone, look at who's around you and look what's happening and what could potentially happen. Of course, there's things that we don't see coming, just like happened to but we have to be more aware of our surroundings and what's going on because the people in power don't seem to be committed to helping us. Don't seem to be committed to making things better in at least these sanctuary cities, or at least these places where, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter if it's a sanctuary city or not. If people like DeCarlos Brown are being let out of jail 14 times, and most of the times were for violent crimes, I mean, I guess I would go out on a limb and say it doesn't matter where you're at. If you're in the deep woods of Idaho, or if you're downtown LA, downtown New York, in Minneapolis and Nebraska and Arkansas, wherever you're at, it's clear that it's not safe. And apparently, there ain't a whole lot of help coming, especially in Rochester, Minnesota. And I'd go out on a limb and say, especially anywhere in Minnesota. Our state government has handcuffed our police. The good cops that we did have aren't cops anymore, or they're not the same cops that they were when they were allowed to at least somewhat do their jobs. So I guess all I'm trying to say is be aware, be situationally aware of where you're at and what's going on around you. It would be really heartbreaking, extremely heartbreaking to know that one of your children or your friend or another loved one died alone on a train. And then also to know that there were 5 people that just stood there and watched her die until it was too late. And somebody did try to help, but it was too late. What if Irina was your sister? What if she was your daughter? What if she was your best friend? What if she was your girlfriend? What if she was just a person and you're there while this happens to her? What would you do? How would you feel? I don't know, man. It's a sad day. It's a sad day in America. And I know we've had a lot lately, but shit like this is extra ridiculous. I am extremely hopeful. I'm extremely hopeful that we can find a way to do better. I think that we can. I think that we need to change some things. I think we need to do things like let our cops be cops. I think that a lot of people in a lot of places need to think a different way about things like cleaning up our cities with law enforcement and being better to each other, helping out your neighbor, those types of things. Just think that we can be better.